Folks, give yourselves a round of applause for being out here today. God bless you all. There's a couple of guys on horseback back there that have been keeping them safe. How about a little cheer for those police officers? The last time I did anything like this was about 40 years ago. Before I got drafted, and I was in the streets of New York protesting against the Vietnam War.
I saw you.
So I had a 40-year hiatus. You saw me there? You were there too, right? Good times. I guess I was a radical lefty back then. Now I guess I'm an American terrorist. If I'm a terrorist, I'm in great company! I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but all of you here, how many of you folks have been around firearms or have firearms in your home? I'm here to talk about the Second Amendment. That's the one that comes right after freedom of religion and speech and the ability to petition our government without grievances. It reads like this, folks. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. And here's the important part. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I'm an avid turkey hunter and deer hunter. I love going to the range and shooting some targets. But how many of us know the real reason why the Second Amendment is there, folks? Let me give you a quick quote from Thomas Jefferson. Who was he anyway? Some guy back in American history. Principal author of the Declaration of Independence and our third president. The strongest reason for the people to keep and bear arms is as a last resort to protect themselves against tyranny in government. Never to be outdone, Benjamin Franklin, who's another one of those old guys from a couple hundred years ago. He spent a lot of time in France, I hear. And somebody asked him, Dr. Franklin, what's your definitions of democracy? And in his own style he said, democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. Now back to the prepared text. Many of you folks heard about the Heller decision last year by the Supreme Court of the United States. It's what we gun advocates, that's me, a gun advocate, I'm a loon. We've been waiting for a long time.
Me too!
I love you, brother. Basically, the decision, amongst some other things, found that the United States Constitution, the Second Amendment, guaranteed an individual right to keep and bear arms, regardless of service connected with the militia. The militia was, the ability of all able-bodied men to defend the state back in revolutionary times. It made it clear what pro-gun advocates and the antis have been saying for a long time. We won that very, very critical court fight. The sad part is, however, folks, that 4 Supreme Court justices of the 9 voted against that ruling. Justice Scalia wrote a brilliantly written decision, and I'd suggest it's long, it's 60 some odd pages on the internet, but if you have a chance, if you're looking to try to get a little rest some night and you can't go to sleep, try reading it. It's brilliantly well written and reasoned. Anyway, I was hoping that would put an end to the the attacks on the Second Amendment, but it hasn't, unfortunately. There are several bills, as is every year, pending at the federal and state legislatures, as well as even our county of Albany, that would inhibit, restrict, in some way infringe upon our right to keep and bear arms. Or the ability to use our arms if, God forbid, the worst happens, a violent intrusion into our homes. Here are several of the bills pending in New York State and federal level. You can get a complete list by going on the internet and just Googling the federal firearms, state firearms, and local firearms legislation. A801 in the New York State legislature would require the renewal of firearm licenses every 5 years, including licenses currently held by citizens. I've had a license for 40 plus years and I've never held up a store. Go figure, go figure. Radical. This is a beaut. A1094. It's got a Senate companion, which means it's dangerous because it could pass both houses in the blink of an eye. And I'm afraid our governor would sign it. A1094 would criminalize keeping a gun in your home ready and available for defensive use. You would be a Class A misdemeanant. That's prison time, folks. If you were caught with a firearm in your home ready to use in the event the worst happens. For you hunters amongst us, A1186 would require transferring or loaning a rifle or shotgun to another person would have to go through a licensed firearms dealer. That means if I go hunting with my buddy Elliot and I want to lend him my shotgun to hunt, I've got to find a licensed firearm dealer so I can give him that weapon to hunt. Is that lunacy, folks? Be up here. There's another bill pending in the state legislature which makes it very frightening. It's the same, pretty similar to the one about keeping a weapon loaded in your home ready for use. It's called the Children's Weapon Accident Prevention Act. How the hell could you be against that, right? It's got a great handle, folks. It does the same thing. It disarms you. If you have a gun in your home, you're a criminal. There are several bills also pending at the federal level. HR 45. How many of you guys or ladies hunt with semi-automatics? Right? Pretty common, especially to follow up with a second shot on a white-tailed deer. HR 45 would require a federal license for all semi-automatics. And it would also outlaw keeping a loaded firearm in the home for defensive purposes. You gotta be a victim, folks. You gotta be a victim, then you're in sync.
Sure, and the government.
Say it again, brother. What's the point of having a firearm in the home if it's not loaded? Call the police and wait 45 minutes. Those poor guys are so overburdened now. Here's another one for you. HR 1020. Come on, don't get rowdy on me now. Come on. There's a so-called gang bill pending in the House of Representatives. Gang bill. Keep that in mind. Gang bill. That means you. You're a violent felon. If you use deadly force that somebody breaks into your home and the prosecutor thinks you should have retreated. You're a felon.
I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6.
Did you hear that? I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. It's a man after my own heart. My brothers in arms, military veterans, raise your hands for a moment.
A few months ago.
God bless you all, man. God bless you all. There's a bill in Congress called a mandatory health plan. I'm sure you've heard about it. It contains a lot of provisions. It's several hundred pages long, but part of it has something called prohibited persons. Another key phrase, folks, prohibited persons, where you could be denied the right to own a firearm by your federal government if you fall into a whole bunch of categories. One of which is soldiers that may have some evidence of PTSD. PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. any past drug use, any depression, any anxiety, you could be defined as a prohibited person. And when you submit your application, ATF 4473, I think it is, it'll come back rejected because you are a prohibited person. Okay, guys, you can fight for your country, but don't try to carry a firearm in America!